Hey guys, welcome to the channel, and what we are going to talk about today are the best TVs that you can buy under 30,000 rupees. Now 30,000 rupees is a really tight budget when you are looking for a great TV, and there's some good news for a lot of you and some bad news for some of you. Now the good news is that SDR and 8-bit panels have become so good that even on budget TVs, standard dynamic range content in 4K looks absolutely breathtaking, and the fact that you can get a very good visual experience is something that you can get on a budget. Now remember, on the 30,000 rupee price point, what you can get is a good 43-inch 4K TV. Even though it supports HDR, Dolby Atmos and stuff, those are the things that we're going to address in this video. But the fact that you can get a 43-inch TV, in some cases even a 50-inch TV, is great, especially for those of you on a budget. So before we get into the recommendations, we are going to address a few issues that I have with TVs in this price point and how someone like you can get the best experience possible. Now let's address the first point, which is HDR and Dolby Vision. Now, while HDR and Dolby Vision are great if you are consuming content in HDR and Dolby Vision, it needs a lot of factors into play. So first of all is the contrast ratio of the TV needs to be really high. The TV should have at least some form of dimming zones, which these budget TVs do not have. Peak brightness needs to cross the 400-500 nits range even for you to get a semblance of a good HDR experience, and at the same time the black levels of the TV need to be good. All these things are something that a budget TV cannot do. So while you do get the Dolby Atmos and HDR tag when you are buying this TV, know that the experience is going to be kind of lackluster. A few years ago, a lot of HDR TVs had the problem of making dark content or low lit content look really dim, and that problem has been addressed by artificially making the black levels higher than they should be. Now for most of you this is not going to make a difference, but yeah, you are going to be able to see details in places where you were not meant to see them before. So I would highly recommend switching off HDR and Dolby Vision if possible when consuming HDR content, because trust me, the SDR picture that you're going to get is going to give you a much better experience. The second point to keep in mind is Dolby Atmos. While most of these TVs have anywhere between 24 and 30 watts, some may even cross the 30 watts range when it comes to sound output, they are two speakers that are down firing. So while the Dolby Atmos tag comes on, you are still getting stereo sound from the TV. Where it does help is if the TV has ARC or eARC support, which means that if you have a good Dolby Atmos soundbar, then you can connect that to the TV to get Dolby Atmos out of the soundbar. The TV itself is just going to give you stereo output. The next point to consider is the connectivity options. Now you are going to get a standard strobe of 3 HDMI ports, 2 USB ports, Bluetooth, auxiliary, some AV inputs, and I think that should be pretty much okay for the most of you. If you do have more than 3 devices that require HDMI, or if you are going to use one port as ARC or eARC depending on the TV that you are getting, and you are worried that 2 HDMI ports is not enough, I recommend you go and pick up an HDMI switcher. I have a video on accessories to buy for your TV. You can go check that out. I've spoken a lot more about those accessories in that video, especially how to use the HDMI switcher and what it can do for you. Now a couple of pro tips. Now I have put one LG TV in this list, but I haven't put Samsung and Sony, and that's because Samsung and Sony are kind of giving you full HD TVs. But if you are someone that's very brand conscious, and I would highly recommend going in for a Sony, LG and then a Samsung if possible at this price point, if the features like smart TV etc are not very important for you, simply because of after sales service. I have known a lot of people that have bought these budget brand TVs and they have suffered in after sales service, especially if the TV died within 1 year. So despite being in warranty, I've seen a lot of people suffer because they haven't been able to get that replacement or the TV repaired. So Sony, LG and Samsung, and I'm saying it in that order because I have personally experienced all the 3 brands, and I think Sony's after sales service is the best of the lot. LG is a very close second. In fact, LG can really give Sony a run for its money when it comes to after sales service for TVs, and Samsung's kind of a hit or miss depending on the city you live in. That's been my experience owning TVs from all these 3 brands. Another thing that I want to tell you is please be careful of HDMI 2.1 jargons. Auto low latency mode is basically game mode, which existed before HDMI 2.1. Yes, it has had a lot of benefits with HDMI 2.1, and that's to do with the technology that HDMI 2.1 brings. But ALLM could simply be the game mode, or the ability to reduce the input lag when playing games, and it has existed on HDMI 2.0 TVs as well. Similarly, EARC has existed on HDMI 2.0 TVs even before HDMI 2.1, because some of the features in HDMI 2.1 are backwards compatible and working with other TVs, and the HDMI standard itself has said that even if a TV supports one of all these features, the TV can market itself as HDMI 2.1, which is kind of a big loss for consumers. So if you're someone that's genuinely looking for HDMI 2.1 features, you are going to have to do a lot more research. Remember, the TV needs to have a native 120 Hz panel, native support for 4K at 120 Hz to be able to give you all the benefits of HDMI 2.1. It needs to have a higher bandwidth as compared to what HDMI 2.0 brings, and unfortunately this information is not available. So you may want to do your research before buying a TV, or simply ask me in the comment section and I will do my best to address your issues. And my last pro tip is for you gamers out there. If you're looking to game on a 43-inch TV, I would highly recommend that for 30,000 rupees you can get a much better monitor in the 27-inch range at 1440p and even 4K. And now that both the Xbox Series X and the PS5 support 1440p, if gaming is a priority, I would highly recommend you go in for a monitor rather than a TV. But yes, if you are just buying one TV for the entire family to consume content on, then you can definitely consider these TVs for gaming. Like I said, ALLM is something that's advertised by them to help with input lag, and the overall experience on these TVs is great, especially if you control the fact that you can switch off HDR on these consoles and play the games in SDR. Well, enough about that. Let's come to my recommendations. And before I begin with the first one, I promise you this is the last point, and that is a lot of these brands are selling you homogeneous products, be it TCL, iFalcon, Xiaomi, Redmi, Acer, you name it. And a lot of these brands have a lot of homogeneous products, especially when it comes to specifications, and the panel difference is very little. It's very difficult to know whether you're getting a VA or an IPS panel at this price point, because OEMs, the guys who are manufacturing these TVs, use a mix of panels. So it's difficult to know which panel you're getting. However, if you do have the option of IPS, I think you should consider that, because in a bright room, IPS works a little better and gives you better viewing angles. But if you're going to consume content in a dark room and sit relatively in front of the TV, then a VA panel makes more sense. So let's start with my first recommendation, and that is the Xiaomi 43-inch X series 4K TV. And the reason I'm recommending this, of course, all the features I've spoken about above kind of work, but Xiaomi's patch wall UI has been one that is one of the better user interfaces on a TV, and it gives you the option of both stock Android TV or Google TV with one button, and another button brings up patch wall. Patch wall is pretty well localized. You get to discover good content. If you have multiple apps, the content from all those apps is integrated into the home screen of patch wall, and I think that UI is much more holistic in helping you discover better content, especially when compared to Google TV on its own or any other UI. As a matter of fact, I mean, it is a 4K TV with support for HDR, Dolby Vision, standard connectivity options, pretty decent sound output. But with the X series, what Xiaomi has done is given you a little bit better aesthetics of the TV, slimmer bezels all around, better quality feet, better quality construction. Just the look and feel of the TV is slightly more premium, and the picture quality at this price point is fairly decent, and you do have a decent number of settings to tinker around with to ensure that you get the best experience. The next TV, of course, that I'm talking about is the Redmi 43-inch TV, and it is just a budget sibling to the Xiaomi TV I just spoke about. Same patch wall UI, slightly thicker bezels all around, slightly more plasticky feel compared to the Xiaomi X series TV. The picture quality is almost the same. You won't be able to tell the difference unless you've kept the TV side by side, and I have a strong feeling that almost the same panels are being used for both, so you aren't really compromising on the picture quality all that much. So having said that, you can go in for either the Xiaomi X series or the Redmi TV based on which one fits your budget, because both, in my opinion, are fairly good offerings. Now, another brand that I think makes fairly decent budget TVs is Hisense. So you can go in for the 43A6H, which again is a 26,000 rupee price point. Again, it is Google TV, gives you decent sound output, fairly good picture quality, decent number of settings that you can tinker around with, and the overall experience of using this TV is quite good. Another TV to consider is the OnePlus 43Y1S, and just like Xiaomi has its own UI, OnePlus has its own UI in the form of Oxygen Play. So this is one definitely that you can consider at this price point. So one thing to note about OnePlus is that it kind of tries to work in an ecosystem, which means that when you are with a OnePlus smartphone or you have OnePlus accessories, they pair and work more seamlessly with the OnePlus TV. So if you have a OnePlus phone, you can take a screenshot of what you're watching, or simply cast the content, or simply navigate the apps of the TV from the convenience of your phone, making that a more seamless experience and giving you that Apple-like ecosystem experience, which in my opinion is pretty great. Now, another TV to consider at this price point is, and I'm just going to say this model number once because it's really long, is the Acer QLED TV AR43GR2851VQD. Let's just call it the Acer QLED TV. Now, when you look at the remote control of this TV, it's very similar to a Nokia TV that I reviewed a very long time ago, along with a compact TV that I have had the opportunity to see. So it's very clear that the manufacturer that's making this TV has made TVs for multiple other brands, which is fine. I mean, that's how manufacturing works, right? You can just, especially when the products are so homogeneous. Now, the advantage is that some of these QLED TVs on a budget do use a few generations older QLED panels, which means you get that much more punchier colors, that much better contrast on a TV. And if this is a QLED panel which is even a few generations older, you should just get that much more vivid colors when you are consuming content, especially from OTT platforms. Again, I would highly recommend switching off any form of HDR or post-processing to get the best possible picture settings on this TV. Last but not least, we have an LG TV, which is the 43UQ7500PSF, and I've always liked LG's user interface, especially, you know, when it comes with WebOS, you get a bunch of apps as well from streaming services, and LG's TVs generally tend to have pretty good picture quality even at the lower end of the spectrum. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you are considering from one of the three big brands, LG is definitely one that you can consider because they make such high-end TVs. Every few generations, their high-end TV technology trickles down to the lower end, which means that the features on offer on this TV, which is very close to the 30,000 rupee price point, was once upon a time, even like 5, 6, 7 years ago, a flagship feature on a TV. So yeah, if you are on a budget and you are looking for one of the premium brands that makes a TV, then this is definitely one to consider. So there you have it, guys. That was a look at a bunch of TVs that you can consider for the price point of about 30,000 rupees. As always, you can let us know what you thought of this video in the comment section before, and for more from the world of technology, you can subscribe to the channel. We will catch you in another video. It's goodbye for now.